In August 1913, a ship carrying scientists, Inuit hunters, sailors, and plans for Arctic exploration sailed into the Arctic and vanished. This was the Karluk expedition, intended to map uncharted territories, study wildlife, and assert Canadian sovereignty. What followed was a year-long struggle for survival in one of the planet's most unforgiving environments. Subscribe to Infinity to uncover the full story of history's forgotten expeditions. In June 1913, the Karluk departed from Nome, Alaska, as the flagship of the Canadian Arctic expedition, led by Vilhjalmur Stefansson. The mission was officially scientific, to conduct Arctic research and establish sovereignty claims for Canada. The ship carried a mixed crew of scientists, Inuit hunters, experienced sailors, and support staff. Many were unaware of how unprepared the Karluk truly was for heavy polar ice conditions. The Karluk was an aging wooden whaling vessel, not originally built for deep polar exploration. Despite concerns raised by some experts, Stefansson insisted it was sufficient for the mission. The departure atmosphere was optimistic. Journals from the early days mention calm seas, clear planning sessions, and enthusiasm for scientific discovery. The Canadian government had political motivations behind the mission. Successfully reaching and documenting the Arctic would strengthen territorial claims in an area contested by global powers. Stefansson had secured strong media coverage and institutional backing. Public perception painted the mission as both ambitious and well-equipped, a narrative that would soon be challenged. The scientific goals included mapping uncharted regions, studying wildlife, and collecting geological and ethnographic data. Each expert on board had clearly defined tasks. However, by late August, the environment changed rapidly. The Karluk began encountering thick, mobile sea ice, far earlier than expected. The ship's mobility decreased day by day. The ice pack surrounded the vessel, limiting navigational control. By early September 1913, the Karluk was fully trapped, frozen into the Arctic ice, no longer able to navigate freely. As the Karluk remained locked in ice, navigation became impossible. The ship drifted with the moving ice flow rather than under its own control. Stefansson left the ship with a small hunting party to search for fresh meat, expecting to return within days. Soon after his departure, the ice began to move more aggressively, forcing the Karluk westward into the Chukchi Sea without warning. Captain Robert Bartlett assumed full command in Stefansson's absence and began preparing for long-term entrapment. Supplies were evaluated. The Karluk carried provisions for several months, though their sufficiency depended on whether rescue became possible before deep winter. Internal structural reinforcements were made to protect the hull from increasing ice pressure. The drift continued steadily away from mainland Alaska, pushing the ship further into remote and uncharted Arctic territory. Temperatures dropped rapidly, and thickening ice eliminated any prospect of freeing the vessel. No communication with Stefansson was possible. His status and location remained unknown to those aboard the ship. By October 1913, it was clear that the Karluk would not escape before winter. The ship was now fully at the mercy of the polar ice. By late October 1913, temperatures in the region had fallen below -30°C. The Arctic night began to lengthen, reducing visibility and complicating all external activity. The Karluk continued drifting westward, now well beyond reachable supply lines or any realistic rescue route before spring. The pressure ridges began forming around the ship, jagged walls of ice created by colliding flows, rising several meters high. Captain Bartlett ordered regular ice soundings to monitor the ship's stability and detect dangerous movements beneath the surface. The crew established a perimeter on the ice to track cracks and shifts that might threaten the vessel's structural integrity. During early November, the ship experienced its first serious ice compression. The hull groaned audibly as frozen pressure squeezed against it. Bartlett initiated contingency plans to prepare dog sleds, provisions, and emergency shelters in case the ship was crushed. Frostbite risk increased sharply as wind chill reached below -45°C, reducing the safe operational window outside the ship to minutes at a time. The Karluk's drift trajectory brought it closer to Siberian waters, an unplanned and dangerous relocation further away from established Arctic routes. By December 1913, all evidence pointed to an inevitable structural failure if ice pressure continued increasing. Preparations for potential evacuation began in earnest. In early January 1914, the surrounding ice began to shift more violently, exerting sustained pressure against the Karluk's hull. The ship's structure, already weakened by months of compression, began producing sharp cracking sounds, an indication that the hull was nearing its failure point. Large pressure ridges formed on both port and starboard sides, rising and folding inward, physically squeezing the ship into a narrowing corridor of ice. Captain Bartlett ordered all critical supplies, including food, sleds, medical kits, navigation instruments, and dog teams, to be moved onto the surrounding ice as a precaution. Shortly after preparations began, a major ice surge struck. The Karluk's starboard side was lifted partially out of the water before being forced back down under intense pressure. The hull began to fracture. Water entered the lower compartments rapidly, confirming the ship would not remain afloat. Bartlett officially ordered the evacuation. The crew exited onto the ice, establishing a primary camp approximately 100 meters from the sinking ship. The Karluk continued to break apart over the following hours. Its stern was the last visible section before it disappeared beneath the ice. The crew established a stable main camp, organized provisions, and began over-ice travel toward Wrangel Island, covering approximately 1,300 kilometers of Arctic terrain under extreme temperatures. Bartlett reached Siberia in April 1914 to request rescue. Authorities dispatched ships to Wrangel Island, retrieving the remaining survivors in September 1914. Of the 25 members who sailed on the Karluk, 11 died, 14 survived, concluding the expedition's historical record. This is the complete account of the Karluk expedition, a story of ambition, endurance, and the unforgiving Arctic. If this journey through history captivated you, make sure to subscribe to Infinity. We bring the forgotten expeditions, untold survival stories, and historical mysteries to life, delivering the adventures that textbooks left behind. Don't miss the next extraordinary chapter. Your journey into the past starts here.